The most powerful duke in the kingdom rejected every noble bride brought before him for 7 years. Then one rainy evening he saw a village girl standing barefoot in the mud defending her younger brother from royal soldiers. And from that moment the feared duke completely lost his mind over her. What happens when a ruthless ruler becomes obsessed with a girl who refuses to fear him? What happens when jealous nobles discover the future duchess is nothing more than a commoner? Subscribe now before the story begins, because this royal romance is filled with forbidden love, betrayal, revenge, dangerous passion, and a fearless village girl who captured the heart of the kingdom's coldest duke. Rain poured heavily across the village of Briarthorn while terrified merchants rushed indoors before the storm worsened. The muddy streets emptied quickly except for one girl standing in the center of the road arguing with royal guards. Rosalie Everwin refused to move. At 22, Rosalie possessed the kind of beauty that made people stare twice without understanding why. Soft golden blonde hair fell in loose waves around her shoulders, while storm-gray eyes burned with fierce determination. Her pale skin glowed beneath the rain despite the simple cream-colored village dress clinging to her slim figure. Unlike noble women, Rosalie carried no jewels, no expensive silks, no royal titles. Yet every villager secretly believed she looked more graceful than half the women inside the capital palace. The youngest guard grabbed her younger brother roughly by the arm. The boy cried in fear. Rosalie stepped forward instantly. "Remove your hand from him." The guard laughed cruelly. "Your family failed to pay taxes. The boy comes with us until payment is made." Rosalie shoved the soldier hard enough to surprise everyone nearby. "You will not touch my brother again." The guards immediately reached for their swords. Villagers gasped nervously. Nobody challenged royal soldiers and survived peacefully afterward. Then another voice entered the storm. "Enough." Silence spread across the road immediately. Every guard straightened in fear. A black royal carriage stood nearby, surrounded by armored horsemen. The carriage door opened slowly. Duke Adrian Ravenscroft stepped into the rain. The entire village froze. Even the storm itself felt quieter around him. At 32, Adrian Ravenscroft ruled the Northern Territories with terrifying authority. Tall, broad-shouldered, and dangerously handsome, he carried the presence of a man born to command kingdoms. Dark black hair rested neatly against his sharp jawline, while icy silver eyes scanned the village coldly. A faint scar crossed his lower lip, making his expression appear permanently dangerous. His black royal coat, lined with silver embroidery, moved against the storm like darkness itself. Women across the kingdom dreamed of becoming his duchess. Adrian rejected every single one. 100 noble daughters. 100 alliances. 100 royal opportunities. None impressed him. Until now. His silver eyes settled on Rosalie. And remained there. Rosalie noticed immediately. Unlike everyone else, she refused to bow. The guards quickly released her brother. "Forgive us, your grace." Adrian ignored them completely. "Who is she?" One trembling soldier answered carefully. "Rosalie Everwin, your grace. Village healer." Adrian studied her silently. Rainwater dripped from her golden hair while fury still burned inside her gray eyes. Most women trembled before him. Rosalie looked annoyed instead. "Interesting." Adrian stepped closer. The muddy road separated them by only a few inches now. "You assaulted royal guards." Rosalie crossed her arms. They deserved worse. Several soldiers inhaled sharply. Nobody spoke to Adrian Ravenscroft that way. Yet the Duke suddenly smiled. A slow, dangerous smile filled with amusement. What prevented you from kneeling? Rosalie lifted her chin proudly. Fear should be earned, not inherited through titles. The entire village looked ready to faint. Adrian, however, seemed fascinated. For the first time in years, genuine interest flickered across his expression. What is your name again? Rosalie narrowed her eyes. You already heard it. The Duke laughed softly. The sound shocked every soldier present. Adrian removed one black glove slowly. Rosalie Everwin. You just became very important to me. From that moment, everything changed. The following morning, 3 royal carriages arrived outside Rosalie's cottage. Villagers crowded the muddy streets, whispering nervously. Rosalie stepped outside wearing a plain blue dress, while her younger brother Oliver stared in disbelief. Commander Tristan Vale approached respectfully. At 35, Tristan possessed sharp brown hair, dark green eyes, and the disciplined posture of a lifelong warrior. His royal black uniform carried silver markings of the Northern Army. The Duke requests your presence at Ravenscroft Palace. Rosalie frowned. Requests. Tristan hesitated briefly. The Duke does not usually repeat requests. Rosalie sighed heavily. Wonderful. Oliver grabbed her sleeve nervously. Rosalie, please do not anger him. Too late. The journey toward Ravenscroft Palace lasted several hours. Rosalie spent most of it glaring suspiciously through the carriage window. When the massive black palace finally appeared across the snowy cliffs, her breath caught despite herself. The fortress looked enormous. Silver towers pierced the clouds while royal banners carrying black wolves danced against the cold wind. Everything about the palace screamed power and danger. Inside the grand entrance, servants bowed deeply as Rosalie entered beside Tristan. Noble women standing nearby immediately whispered behind jeweled fans. The village girl had arrived. Rosalie ignored them. She refused to appear intimidated even though anxiety twisted inside her chest. Tristan stopped before enormous golden doors. The Duke awaits inside. Rosalie entered alone. Adrian Ravenscroft stood beside towering windows overlooking the frozen mountains. Sunlight reflected against his black royal attire, making him appear even more intimidating. Without turning, he spoke calmly. Most women spend hours preparing before meeting me. Rosalie folded her arms. Most women probably want something from you. Adrian finally faced her. And you do not? No. The answer arrived too quickly. Adrian noticed. His silver eyes sharpened with interest. Why? Rosalie walked closer slowly. Because powerful men always believe kindness is weakness. And eventually they ruin everyone around them. Something unreadable crossed Adrian's face briefly. Who taught you that? Life. Silence settled between them. Then Adrian approached until only inches separated them. You are very different from noble women. Rosalie looked directly into his silver eyes. Good. I would hate to disappoint you by pretending otherwise. Again, Adrian smiled. The Duke almost never smiled. Servants across the kingdom feared his temper and coldness. Yet this village girl somehow entertained him effortlessly. Adrian turned toward the fireplace. Sit with me. Rosalie remained standing. I prefer standing. Adrian glanced toward her again. You distrust me deeply. Should I not? Perhaps not. Perhaps wisely. Rosalie studied him carefully. Behind the intimidating power, something darker lived inside Adrian Ravenscroft. Loneliness. The realization unsettled her more than his authority. Days passed strangely afterward. Instead of dismissing Rosalie, Adrian continued inviting her throughout the palace. He showed her royal libraries, gardens, council halls, training grounds. Everywhere they went, nobles watched in disbelief. The Duke who rejected princesses now spent hours with a village healer. Lady Vivian Sinclair hated every moment of it. Vivian possessed everything noble society admired. Long platinum blonde hair, bright blue eyes, perfect royal posture, expensive gowns covered in diamonds. At 27, she remained the favorite candidate for Duchess despite Adrian rejecting her 3 separate times. Seeing Rosalie beside him felt unbearable. One afternoon, Vivian cornered Rosalie inside the palace gardens. "You walk these halls very confidently for someone born in mud." Rosalie calmly continued trimming herbs. "Confidence costs nothing." Vivian's expression hardened. "Adrian enjoys temporary distractions. Do not confuse attention with affection." Rosalie looked up slowly. "You sound personally wounded." Vivian stepped closer. "Women like you never survive royal courts." Rosalie smiled faintly. "Then perhaps royal courts deserve better women." Vivian stormed away furious. Unfortunately, Adrian witnessed everything from the balcony above. That evening he summoned Vivian immediately. The noblewoman entered his office confidently believing he intended private conversation. Instead, Adrian remained seated behind his desk with cold silver eyes. "You insulted Rosalie publicly." Vivian forced a smile. "Your Grace, surely you cannot value a common girl above noble blood." Adrian stood slowly. The temperature inside the room itself seemed to drop. "Never speak about her again." Vivian paled. Adrian moved closer. "Every woman inside this kingdom begged for my attention. Rosalie never once asked for it. That alone places her above everyone else." For the first time, Vivian realized the terrifying truth. The Duke was genuinely obsessed. Meanwhile, Rosalie fought constantly against her growing attraction toward Adrian. She hated how carefully he listened whenever she spoke, how gently he treated children and wounded soldiers, how his cold expression softened slightly around her. One evening, snow covered the palace gardens while musicians performed softly during a royal banquet. Rosalie stood alone near the balcony wearing a silver gown Adrian personally selected for her. The elegant fabric wrapped beautifully around her slim figure while tiny crystals decorated her golden hair. She looked breathtaking. Adrian noticed immediately upon entering the ballroom. The entire room disappeared from his mind. Only Rosalie remained. Several nobles attempted greeting him, yet Adrian barely acknowledged them. His silver eyes stayed fixed on her across the crowded hall. Commander Tristan smirked quietly beside him. "You are staring again." Adrian answered calmly. "Let them notice." Tristan laughed softly. "The Duke who once rejected every bride in the kingdom now behaves like a desperate poet." Adrian ignored the comment completely. Rosalie turned toward him suddenly. Their eyes locked instantly. Heat spread through both of them. Adrian crossed the ballroom without hesitation. Every noble watched silently. Rosalie spoke first. "Everyone keeps staring at us." Adrian stopped before her. "Let them." His deep voice lowered slightly. You look beautiful tonight. Rosalie felt her heartbeat stumble. Compliments from Adrian carried dangerous weight. You selected the dress yourself. Because I wanted every person here to understand something clearly. Rosalie frowned slightly. What exactly? Adrian's gaze darkened possessively. That nobody else compares to you. The honesty nearly destroyed her composure. Before Rosalie answered, another nobleman interrupted. Lord Damien Ashford. At 29, Damien carried charming features with brown hair, golden eyes, and effortless confidence. Unlike most nobles, he spoke warmly toward Rosalie from the beginning. Lady Rosalie, may I request this dance? Adrian's jaw tightened instantly. Rosalie noticed immediately. Damien extended his hand politely. Rosalie accepted partly from curiosity. The orchestra began playing softly while Damien guided her across the ballroom floor. Adrian watched every movement with growing irritation. Tristan nearly laughed beside him. You look prepared to start a war over a dance. Adrian responded coldly. Perhaps I am. Across the ballroom, Damien smiled gently toward Rosalie. The Duke clearly adores you. Rosalie avoided the subject. Your Grace enjoys control. Damien shook his head. No. This looks different. Rosalie glanced toward Adrian unintentionally. Their eyes met again instantly. The intensity inside his silver gaze made her breath catch. Possession. Desire. Obsession. Every dangerous emotion existed there openly. The dance ended moments later. Before Damien fully released her hand, Adrian appeared beside them. His expression remained calm, but tension radiated from him dangerously. Lord Damien. Your Grace. Adrian offered a thin smile. You may leave now. Damien wisely bowed before disappearing into the crowd. Rosalie folded her arms afterward. That was rude. Adrian stepped closer. He touched you too much. Rosalie blinked in disbelief. It was a dance. Adrian lowered his voice. Exactly. Heat rushed through her body unexpectedly. You sound jealous. Adrian answered immediately. I am. Again his honesty unsettled her. Most powerful men lied constantly. Adrian rarely bothered. Rosalie looked away briefly. You cannot become angry every time another man speaks with me. Watch me try. The dangerous softness in his voice sent shivers down her spine. Later that night, Rosalie wandered through the palace library, unable to sleep. Thoughts of Adrian haunted her endlessly. She hated how deeply he affected her already. A sudden thunderstorm shook the windows outside. Rosalie reached for a book when another hand touched the shelf beside hers. Adrian. His black shirt rested loosely against his broad frame while rainwater still darkened his hair. Rosalie's pulse quickened instantly. You frightened me. Adrian studied her carefully. You avoid me whenever emotions become complicated. Rosalie turned away. You imagine things. No. Adrian stepped closer. I notice everything about you. Silence stretched between them. The storm outside grew louder. Rosalie finally looked toward him again. Why me? Adrian's expression softened unexpectedly. Because you never cared who I was. Every noblewoman sees titles first. Power second. Money third. You looked at me like a man before anything else. Rosalie swallowed carefully. That sounds dangerously personal. It is. Adrian gently touched her cheek. His rough fingers contrasted against her soft skin, sending warmth through her entire body. Rosalie should have stepped away. Instead, she leaned slightly into his touch. Adrian noticed immediately. His silver eyes darkened. "Tell me to stop." Rosalie could not speak. Adrian lowered his forehead against hers slowly. "Tell me now." But she never did. Adrian kissed her softly at first. Carefully, like a man restraining years of buried hunger. Rosalie melted instantly beneath him. Her fingers tangled through his dark hair while Adrian pulled her closer against his chest. The kiss deepened with terrifying intensity. Everything around them disappeared. The storm, the palace, the world itself. Only Adrian remained. When they finally separated, both struggled to breathe. Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "You are becoming my weakness." Rosalie touched his scar gently. "That frightens you. More than war ever did." For the first time in years, Adrian Ravenscroft looked vulnerable. Their secret romance spread quickly through the palace despite attempts to hide it. Servants whispered constantly. Nobles grew furious. And the royal family became deeply concerned. Queen Margaret summoned Adrian immediately. At 55, the queen possessed sharp gray eyes, elegant silver hair, and the cold intelligence of a ruler who survived decades of political games. Adrian entered the royal chamber calmly. "You requested my presence." Margaret studied him carefully. "The kingdom speaks of nothing except your village girl." Adrian remained emotionless. "Rosalie has a name." Margaret sighed heavily. "You rejected princesses from powerful kingdoms. Now you risk political disaster for a commoner." Adrian walked toward the window. "I risk nothing. You risk everything." Margaret approached slowly. "The council will never accept her." Adrian finally faced the queen again. "Then the council may learn disappointment." Margaret stared at him silently before speaking softly. "You truly love her?" The question lingered heavily inside the room. Adrian answered without hesitation. "Completely." Meanwhile, Rosalie struggled adapting to royal life. Despite Adrian's protection, noble women constantly insulted her behind false smiles. Some servants ignored orders from her deliberately. Others spread cruel rumors about her family. Rosalie endured quietly until one evening matters finally exploded. During dinner, Lord Cedric Holloway openly mocked her village background before dozens of nobles. Surely the Duke grows bored of intelligent women. That must explain this unusual fascination. Several nobles laughed softly. Rosalie placed her silverware down calmly. "Interesting." Cedric smirked. "You disagree." Rosalie looked directly toward him. "Intelligence rarely announces itself loudly." Which explains why her voice dominates every conversation. The dining hall fell silent instantly. Several nobles nearly choked, trying not to laugh. Cedric's face darkened with humiliation. Adrian, however, looked dangerously amused. Cedric stood furiously. "You forget your place." Before Rosalie answered, Adrian rose slowly from his chair. The room froze immediately. His silver eyes locked onto Cedric with terrifying calmness. "No. You forgot hers." Adrian stepped beside Rosalie protectively. "Any insult directed toward Rosalie becomes an insult toward me." Cedric paled immediately. "Forgive me, Your Grace." Adrian's expression remained cold. "Leave." Cedric disappeared instantly. After dinner, Rosalie confronted Adrian privately. You should not threaten nobles because of me. Adrian removed his gloves calmly. Why not? Because they already hate me. Adrian moved closer. Let them. Rosalie sighed heavily. You cannot solve everything through intimidation. Adrian gently brushed golden hair away from her face. Perhaps not. But nobody humiliates you while I breathe. The fierce devotion inside his voice made her chest ache painfully. Rosalie finally understood something dangerous. She loved him too. Completely. Madly. Irrevocably. Unfortunately, happiness never survives royal courts peacefully. 1 week later, disaster arrived unexpectedly. Oliver, Rosalie's younger brother, disappeared from the village. Rosalie panicked immediately after receiving the letter. Adrian found her trembling inside the palace corridor. Rosalie handed him the message shakily. Oliver is gone. Adrian read the letter silently. Kidnappers demanded Rosalie leave the palace forever if she wished seeing her brother alive again. Rage darkened Adrian's entire expression instantly. Who delivered this? A servant from Briarthorn. Adrian immediately summoned soldiers throughout the palace. By sunrise, hundreds of northern guards searched forests, roads, and villages. Rosalie insisted joining the search despite the danger. Adrian refused initially. Rosalie argued fiercely. Oliver is my family. Adrian stared at her for several silent moments before finally nodding. Then you stay beside me every second. The search led toward abandoned ruins near the eastern cliffs. Snow covered the broken stone walls while armed mercenaries guarded the entrance. Adrian dismounted his horse slowly. His silver eyes looked murderous. Rosalie recognized the dangerous calmness immediately. Someone will die tonight. Inside the ruins, Oliver sat tied beside several terrified villagers. Lord Cedric Holloway stepped from the shadows, smiling cruelly. The common girl ruined everything. Adrian drew his sword instantly. You kidnapped children to punish a woman rejecting you. Cedric laughed bitterly. A village rat replacing noble blood humiliated every lord inside this kingdom. Rosalie moved toward Oliver carefully. Cedric suddenly grabbed her violently, pulling a dagger against her throat. Adrian froze instantly. The air itself became deadly. Cedric sneered toward him. You lost your mind over her. Look at yourself. The great Duke Ravenscroft trembling for a peasant girl. Adrian's silver eyes never left Rosalie. Release her. Cedric pressed the dagger harder. Or what? Something terrifying happened then. Adrian smiled. Not amusement. Not joy. Pure violence. Every soldier nearby stepped backward nervously. Cedric noticed too late. Within seconds, Adrian crossed the distance between them. Steel flashed through the ruins. Cedric collapsed lifeless against the stone floor. Rosalie stared in shock while Adrian immediately pulled her safely against his chest. His heartbeat thundered violently beneath his black armor. Are you hurt? Rosalie shook slightly. No. Adrian held her tighter. Fear still burned inside his silver eyes. The idea of losing her had shattered something inside him completely. Later that night, after Oliver returned safely home, Rosalie found Adrian alone on the palace balcony overlooking the snowy kingdom. He stood silently beneath the moonlight, carrying exhaustion across his face. Rosalie approached slowly. You frightened everyone tonight. Adrian remained facing the mountains. I frightened myself. Rosalie touched his arm gently. Because of Cedric. Because I almost lost you. His voice sounded rough with emotion. Adrian finally turned toward her. I spent years believing love weakened rulers. Now I would burn kingdoms for you without hesitation. Tears filled Rosalie's gray eyes unexpectedly. Adrian stepped closer immediately. Who hurt you? Rosalie laughed softly through tears. Nobody. Adrian gently wiped them away. Then why are you crying? Because nobody ever loved me this fiercely before. Something vulnerable crossed Adrian's expression. Rosalie placed her hands against his face softly. I love you too. The words shattered every remaining wall inside him. Adrian kissed her deeply beneath the winter stars while snow fell quietly around them. For the first time in years, the cold, ruthless Duke finally looked at peace. But the greatest battle still waited ahead. The royal council demanded Adrian choose immediately. Marry a noble bride for political stability, or lose support from several powerful territories. The meeting inside the Grand Council chamber became explosive. Nobles argued endlessly while Adrian sat silently at the head of the table. Lord Victor Harrington finally spoke sharply. A village girl cannot become Duchess of the North. Several council members agreed loudly. Adrian slowly rose from his chair. Silence filled the chamber instantly. His silver eyes swept across every noble present. I rejected 100 suitable brides because none possessed courage, honesty, or loyalty. Rosalie possesses all three. Victor scoffed. She lacks noble blood. Adrian smiled coldly. Then perhaps noble blood has been overrated. Several council members shifted nervously. Adrian continued calmly. You speak about titles while Rosalie defended her brother against armed soldiers without fear. Most nobles here would sell their own families for power. No one answered, because everyone knew he spoke truth. Victor attempted once more. The people will never accept her. Adrian's expression darkened dangerously. The people already love her. Only selfish nobles object. Again silence spread across the chamber. Finally, Queen Margaret herself entered unexpectedly. Every council member stood immediately. The queen walked slowly toward Adrian before turning toward the nobles. Enough. Her sharp gray eyes swept across the room. For decades this kingdom suffered because rulers valued bloodlines over character. Rosalie Everwin possesses more dignity than half the aristocracy combined. Several nobles looked horrified. Margaret continued firmly. The council will approve this marriage, or explain publicly why courage, intelligence, and compassion matter less than family names. No one dared challenge the queen directly. The battle ended instantly. 3 weeks later, preparations for the royal wedding transformed the entire kingdom. Villagers from Briarthorn arrived at the capital crying with disbelief seeing Rosalie become future duchess. Tailors worked endlessly crafting magnificent gowns covered in silver crystals. Palace halls filled with flowers, candles, and music. Yet Adrian cared about only one thing. Rosalie herself. The night before the wedding, Adrian found her standing alone inside the royal garden beneath glowing lanterns. She wore a simple pale blue gown while moonlight illuminated her golden hair beautifully. Adrian stopped walking briefly just to admire her. Rosalie noticed immediately. You are staring again. Adrian approached slowly. I always will. Rosalie smiled softly. Tomorrow changes everything. Adrian touched her cheek gently. Nothing important changes. You still belong beside me. Rosalie searched his silver eyes carefully. You truly do not regret choosing me. Adrian looked almost offended. Rosalie. His deep voice softened completely. Kings offered me alliances. Princesses offered beauty. Noble families offered power. None of them offered peace. He rested his forehead against hers. You did. Rosalie's eyes filled with tears again. Adrian sighed softly. You cry often lately. You keep saying emotional things. Adrian kissed her gently. Then prepare yourself for a lifetime of them. Morning sunlight flooded the royal cathedral while thousands gathered across the capital streets celebrating the wedding. Nobles wore magnificent royal attire. Silver banners decorated every tower. Church bells echoed endlessly through the kingdom. Rosalie walked through the cathedral wearing an extraordinary white and silver gown covered in delicate crystal embroidery. A diamond crown rested against her golden waves while soft gray eyes shimmered emotionally. The entire cathedral fell silent, admiring her beauty. At the altar, Adrian waited dressed entirely in black royal attire with silver armor beneath his ceremonial coat. The feared duke who once rejected every bride alive now looked completely captivated by one village girl. Rosalie reached him slowly. Adrian never removed his gaze from her. The priest began speaking solemnly about loyalty, sacrifice, and eternal devotion. Then came the final question. Do you accept Rosalie Everwin as your lawful duchess and future ruler beside you? Adrian answered immediately. With every part of my soul. Tears escaped Rosalie's eyes. The priest turned toward her. Do you accept Adrian Ravenscroft as your lawful husband? Rosalie smiled softly. Even when he drives me insane. Laughter filled the cathedral warmly. Adrian himself laughed quietly before pulling her closer. The priest completed the ceremony moments later. Duke Adrian Ravenscroft and Duchess Rosalie Ravenscroft. The cathedral exploded with cheers, applause, and celebration. Adrian kissed Rosalie deeply before the entire kingdom without caring who watched. Because after years of rejecting every perfect noble bride alive, the ruthless duke finally found the only woman capable of conquering his heart. A fearless village girl who never bowed before power. And for Adrian Ravenscroft, that victory mattered greater than every kingdom in the world. If you enjoyed this royal romance filled with forbidden love, betrayal, obsession, fearless women, and powerful dukes, subscribe now for more unforgettable royal love stories.